Okay, so good afternoon. We are just talking in Greek. It's Mr. Papathanasis. He's our Minister for Investment. And I'm Alexandra Pali, Vice President of CSR Hellas. I welcome you all in today's webinar, Transforming Supply Chains to Value Chains. Our meetings will last for about an hour, and I would ask everyone to keep the 5 to 7 minutes presentation. After the speeches and presentations are over, I will give 15 minutes to our participants in order to pose their questions. Our administrators are with us and will assist us through the webinar. As we are approaching the deadline set by the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development for achieving the SDGs, a new challenge, COVID-19, has dramatically changed our lives. The pandemic and the consecutive socio-economic impacts made us understand the urgency and importance of accelerating the transition of new business models and strategies to move towards sustainability. CSR and the supply chain management have become essential tools for ensuring a company's performance and financial consolidation. As CSR and supply chain management have a strong interdependence, the European Commission is already discussing and preparing the relevant frameworks and rules for this business transformation. The supply chain is at the core of this new business model. We now need to join forces, work together, collaborate under common values and targets to shape our business's future. Business transformation can only be reached by integrating sustainability in all functions and strategies. Unfortunately, nowadays, we see that many SMEs are at risk of going out of business, since they are unable to keep up with the new demands and difficulties in the market. SMEs are 99.5% of businesses in the whole European Union, and therefore, this leads our focus on them. At this point, I would like to welcome once again and give the floor to Mr. Nikos Papathanasis. He's the alternate Minister of Development and Investment of the Hellenic Republic, who will give us an overview regarding the situation of SMEs in Greece today and the upcoming framework to be implemented. Thank you, Minister, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Pali, for your kind words. And I would like to thank the panel for being here to discuss a very important issue. And also, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute in the European SDG Summit 2020. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to talk, discuss issues that are very important for our European future. Of course, Greece, going through the pandemic, it was severely affected, not only in the sense of the public health, but also it affected our national economy. The government immediately responded very efficiently with measures since the outspring of the COVID in March, and shaped a roadmap that will reset the economy and protect employment. Besides that, we started very, very fast with the decisions of the Prime Minister, and we acted proactively and provided both businesses and workers with the fiscal support they need in order to get through this difficult period. The government's plan, the experts, the medical experts, their instructions, the responsibility of our citizens were the basic strong factors that gave us the leading edge in the fight against the first wave of the virus. These exact factors and additional measures were needed that could help us to successfully surpass the second wave. We are now running on the second wave, and we are following very cautiously all the instructions we received from the experts. We're very optimistic, and we believe and we expect the vaccine that will probably appear towards the end of the year to give us the strength to overcome the problems and see 2021 with an expectation of an increase and rapid growth of our economy. Now, the dual goal of the Greek government was to support the SMEs in order to surpass the crisis. And of course, besides that, it was to lay the foundations for the rapid and sustainable recovery of the Greek economy. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, are really truly the backbone of our economy. And especially in Greece, the percentage is quite high, reaching 99%. So we have 99% of SMEs. Of them, 92% are the very small enterprises. So you understand the meaning of the support of companies like that, as they are quite a lot of them family businesses. Now, they provide more than 2/3 of private sector employment and play a key role in economic growth. They truly have a crucial importance to the European economy, as SMEs are reaching approximately 96% of the European economy companies. Improving access to finance is crucial, especially in Greece, since Greece has undergone a crisis, a financial crisis from 2010. So these companies that survived this financial crisis had to face now COVID-19. Increasing economic uncertainty arising from the coronavirus indicates that now more than ever, it's important to ensure adequate credit availability for SMEs. By providing funding, we want to ensure that businesses will be able to stand on their feet and enhance their competitiveness. Competitiveness is something that we are seeking in the Greek companies, and this is something that we are targeting on the RRF fund. The Minister of Development, Investment and Finance, Ministry of Finance, designed and activated funding tools in order to provide liquidity to businesses, protect jobs, and mitigate the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic. Main funding tools is the Entrepreneurship Fund 2, a program that provides 2 years of interest rate subsidy on all business loans in the sectors that have been affected from the pandemic. The Guarantee Fund of the Hellenic Development Bank, a program that provides a state guarantee of 80% of the loans. The program of the deposits, advanced deposits to be returned, is a program that has run very successfully, a program that ran with no prerequisites and that followed an algorithm. A new institutional framework that we have introduced for microloans that provides extra liquidity to companies. And we have to say that about 5 billion euros are estimated as the amount that the loan that the state has provided in loans in SMEs. The government also temporarily suspended tax and social security obligations for households and enterprises for the entire period of the health crisis, and their settlement in 12 interest-free tranches or 24 installments, bearing an interest of approximately 2%. The official figures show that in total, more than 13 billion cohesion policy programs have been used to support businesses and support workers across the European Union. The Ministry of Development and Investments mobilized additional resources of approximately 3 billion euros for political cohesion without disrupting the planning of existing actions implemented. We ranked, and this is very important, Greece has ranked first among the countries of the European Union in terms of mobilizing resources for cohesion to address the economic and social impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, on the recovery fund, the pandemic underlines surely that the way that the economic, social, and environmental spheres interconnect and the need for a holistic strategy to recovery has to prevail. We are ready to manage funds of up to 72 billion euros from the European Recovery Fund and the new program for the country that will run from 2021 to 2027. Greece is expected to receive 32 billion euros by 2026 from the Recovery Fund, and stating 2026, I mean that all the expenditure has to be completed by 2026, of which 19.3 billion in grants and 12 billion in low-cost loans. The overall package will be used to support employment and to accelerate the exit from the depreciation caused by the coronavirus. We are currently working hard on the National Growth Plan that includes both reforms and investments. Special emphasis will be placed on important initiatives to tackle climate changes, green transition, and digital modernization. These funds that will start in 2021 will initiate a transformation of our national economy as a whole. That is why we are planning to use them wisely and productively in order the benefit to be passed on to every Greek. The National Recovery Plan will soon be ready, and it will be discussed with our public and the society, market representatives, and political parties prior to its implementation. Of course, talking about all the programs, we are standing on the CSR, corporate social responsibility. The actions of the companies have significant impacts on the lives of our citizens around the world, not just in terms of the products and services, but they offer in terms of working conditions, human rights, health, environment, innovation, education. The existence of CSR helps business play an important and positive role, vital role in the lives of the employees, customers, but also in the community in total. We expect that companies will manage and mitigate any negative impact that they may cause, including within the global supply chains. Public authorities have an important role in supporting and encouraging companies to conduct their business responsibly by primarily serve and protect the public and the environment. The Greek government is taking action to achieve the UN's SDGs through legislation. This includes, by the way, the issuance of a bill regarding technical instructions for accessibility, the promotion of e-mobility offering relevant subsidies, the establishment of a special unit in the fight against illicit trade. We have done that. We are promoting a climate change clause in every bill that is being introduced for voting in the Parliament. We introduced home energy saving program, which benefits thousands of households. We've introduced policy for delignification until 2023 and implementation in 2028. We issue a bill for abolition of disposable plastics and the introduction of incentives to promote reuse and enhance recycling. We issue a ministerial decision for ship control in marine environment protection issue in the framework of MARPOL. We establish also birth allowance for each child that is being born. The government encourages all business leaders and aspires leaders, regardless of the size of the company, to take the time and to consider the brand of the company and the DNA of the company in order to promote and support CSR. We are just to end by saying that social responsibility is a value chain by itself, consisting of international organizations, government, businesses, as well as individuals. This value chain is very important and has to be kept unbroken. And again, thank you very much for your invitation. I wish and also the call to discuss here with you this important issue. I wish success in today's event. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Mr. Papathanasis. During this pandemic period, which has been a devastating impact on SMEs, we are cautiously optimistic for the actions that have been already taken. And as CSR Hellas, we are alert and we are by your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We all acknowledge the necessity of the legal framework for the supply chain management and the importance of distribution networks to operate smoothly. Our next speaker is Mrs. Elisa Kazadza, Senior Project Manager at CSR Europe, and she will inform us regarding the new law on supply chain, combining with the updates and developments regarding the non-financial reporting. Please, Mrs. Kazadza, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me correctly.
Yes, we do.
Perfect. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here. So I would like to thank you and all the colleagues of CSR Hellas and CSR Cyprus for the invitation to join this very interesting conversation. I have prepared a few slides, so if we can move to the next slide. Perfect. Also the next one. Very good. So today I was asked to give an overview of the new EU upcoming proposal on due diligence. And on top of that, I will also give you a few main points about the internal reflection from CSR Europe on this topic. CSR Europe, for the ones of you that maybe are not familiar with our network, is a business network made of big multinational companies and also national partners organizations across Europe, of which CSR Hellas and CSR Cyprus are part of. And we work with our members in order to foster the sustainability agenda in Europe. My personal responsibility is to look at the EU side, so at the European Commission, and see what is upcoming from them. So this is why today I will just outline very quickly the new plans of the European Commission in terms of due diligence. So as many of you might already know, in April of this year, Commissioner Didier Reynders, the Commissioner for Justice, announced that the Commission is planning to release a new law for mandatory corporate environmental and human rights due diligence. This legislative proposal will be put on the table next year in 2021. So it's not right now. Here in Brussels, we feel that the debate is already very active on this topic and we feel a sense of urgency. But I think it's also important to remind ourselves that the process will be long. So next year, we will have the proposal from the European Commission, and then the European Parliament and the Council will have to discuss this proposal and to find an agreement on a common text, and only then we will have new legal requirements. So it's a really long journey that is starting now, but the journey has indeed already started. So it is important to already know what are the main elements of this European debate. So, for instance, it's important for you to know that the Commission launched yesterday a public consultation on this new legislative requirement. So you are all invited to give your feedback to the European Commission on how this new law should be shaped. and you will have time until February to do so, and all stakeholders are encouraged to do and to make their voice heard. So at the moment, as I said, the proposal is not on the table yet. So there are more things that we do not know in comparison to the things that we know. So there is not much certitude around it. What we know for sure is that this new law will be mandatory. So it will introduce new transparency requirements for companies. And we also know that it will be horizontal. Horizontal means for all sectors, all companies, and all European member states. And when I say all companies, this includes big multinational companies, but also SMEs. The Commission will only probably have some specific requirements for SMEs, but we don't know yet. Then we also know that this law will include civil and criminal liability, this to ensure sanctions in cases of non-application of the law from companies. Now on the next slide, I know I don't have much time, so I will try to summarize my next two slides together. This is our CSR Europe internal reflection. What do we think about this plan? We think, first of all, that there is a merit in having an EU-wide law on due diligence. This is very, very good to create a level playing field. On the other hand, though, we see some risks, some challenges in the current EU approach. First of all, because the discussion that we see in Brussels is very much focused on corporate reporting. So the risk is to have at the end a tick box exercise that does not lead to actual impact on the ground, but actually leads to disengagement with high risk suppliers in high risk regions, for instance, having obviously a harmful effect on the ground. Then the other risk that we see is that there is a lot of attention on the company individual responsibility, meaning that the European Commission and the debate here in Brussels considers companies able to solve every issue at local level, but we are talking about very complex issues, corruptions, child labor, forced labor. So companies, the responsibility and the sphere of influence of company, unfortunately, is limited, and this is why we need collaboration. And now if we go to the next slide. Yes, maybe we can even skip this one and go directly to our asks, because I want to put the focus on what we think is important for the Commission to know. First of all, we would like the Commission to keep in mind the importance of policy coherence. Good, we will have this new law, but this new law should work together with the other existing policy frameworks, such as the revision of the non-financial disclosure directive, or the trade agreements, development policy, competition policy, and so on and so forth. Then we need supporting measures, capacity building measures, especially for SMEs, but also for big multinational companies. And then third point, the most important point, we need collaboration. Collaboration between governments at the local level, EU institutions, companies, and civil society actors at the local level to have real impact. And this is why we suggest to the Commission the creation of European sector dialogues, a bit on the example of the Dutch government and their RBA agreements, but also what exists already in Germany. This to create structural platforms for debate and collaboration among all actors at the local level. If you want to know more about this and also our position, I just want to remind you about an event that will take place on Thursday morning on this platform. So in the framework of the European SDG Summit, we will discuss with a lot of high-level speakers about this, and you will have more time to hear our approach. And that's it from my side.
We thank you very much, Mrs. Kazadza. I'm keeping the last point you made about the European sector dialogue. I believe it's the most important because that the Commission has to take into account every country member's approaches. And this dialogue, I believe it will be really very fruitful for all our country members. Thank you very much. I would like Dr. Anna Tubulik, Assistant Professor in Operations Management at Nottingham University, to share with us her thoughts and experience regarding the recent developments in the responsible supply chain management, the danger areas for large companies in cooperating with their suppliers in order to help them become more sustainable, and how an SME can integrate sustainability and shift from supply chain to value chain. Please, Dr. Tubulik, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I have prepared a number of slides, but obviously, you know, the time is limited, so I'll try and be quite brief when it comes to that. I'm not sure if the slides are up for the audience. Yep, great. Thank you. So yes, so I'm going to try and give you a bit of a reflection on sustainable supply chain management, and especially what do we know and where should we go based on research that I've been involved in over the last 10 years. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So a quick introduction. You can move to the picture. About me, I always find it really interesting to give a presentation like this. I'm trying to connect with the audience. So I'm based in the UK. I'm associate professor at Nottingham University Business School, but I'm originally from France and from Dijon, which is you know, at the heart of Burgundy. So this has also informed my perspective on what sustainability means, and my European perspective, I would say, having experiences in different countries. You can move to the next slide if you want. My area of research is called sustainable supply chain management, and it's been a growing area of research over the last 2 decades, I would say. And it's moved towards a more radical kind of strand of research recently, thinking about how we could move towards truly sustainable practices in supply chains. And, you know, the idea is no longer about reducing impacts, but trying to really achieve sustainability, meaning that we're trying to maintain economic viability for the players while doing no harms to social and environmental systems. Okay, so this is kind of the definition that I'm keeping in mind when I'm going to talk to you about reflections I'm presenting later. And why is it important that we talk about supply chains these days, particularly in the context of the pandemic, is that, you know, supply chains that connect production and consumption, and they're really literally the key locus for driving change for ecological and social value creation. So this is why this is really important. If you can move to the next slide. And yeah, that's great. So this is just a quick picture to give you a sense of what my reflections are based on. This is me trying to represent 10 years of research in the field, and showing you the different players and angles that I've taken in the research. So I have collaborated with large organizations like PepsiCo, and their suppliers in the UK, but also globally. I've done work with the Cool Farm Alliance, in the context of reducing carbon emissions in supply chains. And I've also done work more recently around, you know, taking a more critical perspective on sustainability in supply chains, trying to understand if companies are walking the talk and what needs to happen for true value to be created. This has led to a focus on very local supply chains as well, working with smaller players, so SMEs based in the UK, but also in other countries. And trying to also connect to consumers, because we tend to think about supply chains as sort of the upstream version to suppliers, but we need to think about the whole picture. So just to kind of show you a bit of an overview of where these reflections come from. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So, you know, reflecting on all of this and all these projects, you know, what do we know about sustainable supply chain management? You can move to the next slide. So we know that a lot of positive has happened over the last decade. Really, I think it's no longer possible to think, you know, I'm not going to engage with sustainability when I'm thinking about my supply chain. It's a really central topic in supply chain management, and we see it in multiple ways in terms of practices. I want to emphasize 2 key aspects here in terms of governance and regulation. We've seen in the last decade a multiplication of national and even supranational frameworks and agreements. I mean, we were just talking about one. From the European Union. I think, we've seen a move towards more and more sort of a regulatory environment changing to really address sustainability, and particularly the SDG also providing us a framework to act within. What we've seen as well in terms of positive is a multiplication of private voluntary standards and initiatives, primarily from large corporations. We've seen a lot of initiatives and codes of conduct being put forward, trying to roll out sustainability programs and supply chains in extended geographies. So a lot of work being done on that as well. We also see, in terms of governance, the rise of multi-stakeholder initiatives and industry-level consortia. So it's no longer a single organization trying to address these issues on their own. It's about supply chains coming together, partners across the different sectors, joining multi-stakeholder platforms. We can think about several, the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil being one, for instance, so the Kimberley process, lots of initiatives coming to the fore as being platforms for changing how sustainability can be achieved in the context of complex supply chains. And we also see a really increasing role for NGOs and third sectors partners, not only just as watchdogs keeping an eye on practices, but also as partners to help companies actually audit their supply chains, implement certification. So there's an increasing role for these players. So overall, I think the conclusion for this one and this part on governance and regulation is that we've seen a move from really top-down compliance towards sustainability to increase collaboration across the board with suppliers, competitors, third parties as a key mechanism. The other dimension that we've seen and has already been mentioned is something more kind of around innovation and thinking about our business models and strategies. We see more and more, and there's a typo here, a cradle-to-cradle designs, which link with the later talk here. We see companies thinking about closing the loop, really taking a very circular economy perspective. And we see from that the emergence of brand new companies, creating value from waste. So, waste no longer being something that we don't think about, but how can we create value from it? And we also see the revamping of old practices like refilling concepts, like the milkman concept getting a makeover, and this is supported by large organizations like Unilever or PepsiCo. Can you move to the next slide, please? But we still know that there are lots of negative impacts and practices that still exist, particularly in the context of supply chains. We know that there's still double bookkeeping taking place, mistreatment of workers and human rights abuses across supply chains. We also know that emission and environmental impact reductions are being completely outweighed by the growth of businesses. And we also know that multi-stakeholder initiatives that I've just presented earlier as a solution have become, some of them, political platforms valuing the voices of large businesses more than small ones, and very much more talk and window dressing than meaningful change. Can we move to the next slide, please? Sorry, yeah, thank you. So overall, there's much that remains to be done. And, we need to kind of think beyond the economic sphere, because this is what has prevailed and that's what has led to these negative impacts that I was just highlighting. We need to think about the fact that we are really seeing the ecological damage around us. And these are just pictures taken from the Living Planet report from WWF. And we're also seeing lots of human rights taking place. So we really need something to change. And that leads me to the next part, and final part of this presentation. If you can move to the next slide. Where can we go in terms of sustainable supply chain? So next slide, please. So really what I want to end on is to say, where can we go? Where we need a paradigm shift, and we need to rethink supply chains along the lines presented in this diagram, meaning that we need to prioritize the Earth life support systems of the ecology to ensure that we have healthy societal systems, and then we can operate healthy economic systems. And that is something that we can look at from the SDG point of view, as you can see from the picture. What would it mean to actually look at supply chains that create value in terms of the biosphere, create value for society, and then ultimately get prosperity. Can we have the final slide, please? So the paradigm shift in terms of supply chain and translating this diagram into practical questions. I think, you know, it's no longer about how do we reduce our negative environmental and social impacts, but how can supply chains create more ecological and social value? I think we need to really kind of see a beyond growth perspective and think about, you know, can we structure and organize our supply networks to promote sufficiency and also to promote prosperity for all. You know, large companies have sort of dominated the picture, but they need to really truly work with their suppliers and other partners, no matter how small. And that's from, you know, research experience. Small companies are very creative. They often, you know, trial things out a lot more than large ones, and they take risks, and they have the flexibility to implement practices. And it's very useful for companies in the supply network context to actually come together in collaborative forums. It can help engage on these issues. More context-sensitive and localized approaches are needed, because we're seeing, you know, as I was saying earlier, you know, double bookkeeping practices, difficulties to change practices in particularly extended supply chains. So you need to have supply approaches that are context-sensitive and localized. And finally, the final point would be, you know, to think about combining from the get-go commercial and sustainability agendas. You can't continue operating your supply chain commercially on the one hand, pushing for prices to go down and asking your suppliers or supply partners to do more from a sustainability agenda. We need to all start thinking about value in more than monetary ways. So this is my final thought, and what I want to say as well is that I will be taking part in the CSR School, which is a 12-day webinar series, and I'll be leading on the supply chain session. So if anyone will attend, these topics will be picked on in there. So thank you very much, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tubulik. I'm sure that there will be a few questions, but we left that for the end of our sessions. Thank you very much. It was really interesting, and what you said, and very coherent. Of course, I take the optimistic approach regarding the private initiatives and the work that has been already done. And further on in our roundtable, we will have the opportunity to talk with Lidl and Coca-Cola, which are the companies that have given the social value and have been helping their supply chain. Thank you very much again. So, Mrs. Claire Bright, she's the founding director of the Center for Business, Human Rights and Environment at Nova University School of Law. She will give us her insights on due diligence options through the supply chain based on a relevant EU study. Please, Mrs. Bright, the floor is yours. Dr. Bright? Hello? Dr. Bright? Can you hear me?
Yes, Alexandra, we can hear you.
Sorry, since Dr. Bright has a problem with her microphone, probably, we could move on, and when she's ready to connect, we reconnect. So, within the rapid changing business environment, all companies across the supply chain are obliged to implement practices and initiate activities on economic, environmental, and social aspects to maintain sustainability. They are under pressure and expected to take into account the recent developments and adopt strategies and practices that are aligned to the new way of doing business. The pace of responsiveness by the SMEs is critical at this point. On the one hand, there is a struggle for the large enterprises to ensure sustainability in their supply chain, and on the other hand, we see SMEs that are not able to fulfill the market's new demands and are at risk of going out of business. So what do large companies do to help minimize this danger? What actions do large enterprises take to support their supply chain in developing their sustainability? Mrs. Angelica Patrouba is the Public Affairs and Communications Director at Coca-Cola Hellenic and will share with us the challenges, stages of preparation and implementation, and the outcome of her company's efforts on this issue. Mrs. Patrouba, the floor is yours.
Hello, and thank you, Mrs. Pali, and thank you for the invitation to attend and participate in this very interesting roundtable today. First of all, I will open the deck with some notes, a few notes from my side on who we are and what we do as a company. Next slide, please. And the next one. We are the Greek entity, a member of Coca-Cola Hellenic, one of the biggest packaged consumer goods companies and strategic partner of Coca-Cola in Europe. And we celebrated last year our 50 years in Greece as Coca-Cola 3i. And we represent one of the largest manufacturing and commercial companies in our country, employing more than 1,500 employees in Greece. And we take pride on the fact of diversity within our workforce and the percentage of women and minorities among us, which make us richer and more inclusive company to address the future tomorrow. We also take pride of the fact that we are one of the most attractive employers for young people in Greece. And in fact, our programs aim to provide skills and capabilities for young people, either to upskill or reskill themselves in order to be able to follow the trends and enter in the workforce of today and tomorrow. One thing also is particular, which we take pride, is our company sustainability performance. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I was suddenly disconnected. I hope you can hear me now. Our group, Coca-Cola Hellenic, is actually having the highest ratings in respected ESG rankings, reflecting this fundamental role that the sustainability strategy plays in our growth strategy, and especially on seeking solutions either on single-use plastics and packaging waste, inequality, climate change, health and nutrition, to name just a few. Next, please. Our supply chain is key to us growing sustainably, and in fact, we aim to create with our network of suppliers, of which in Greece are more than 4,000 small and medium businesses, local businesses that are working with us. We aim to create ecosystems of value because we are actually interdependent. Our growth depends a lot on the innovation, on the commitment of the ideas and the added value offered to us by our network of suppliers and, of course, our customers. I will only highlight certain practices here that are relevant to growing together with our suppliers in this sustainable ecosystem. This covers, of course, the sustainability supply of agricultural ingredients, assessment of our suppliers, supplier performance, and commitment also on local spending as part of our local operations, and of course the adherence of our suppliers to our supplier guiding principles, which cover a series of practices, ethical standards, employment and human rights practices, environmental and work safety requirements, and there we require 100% of our suppliers to commit to and testify this in order to be able to do business with us. And this, in the context of Greece and also in the context of COVID, where businesses are required to maintain their business continuity and maintain the same standards of operations as before in this challenging environment, is even more relevant. Next slide, please. I will offer some examples which illustrate the collaboration between us and our suppliers towards sustainability. And there I would like to stress the factor of innovation, of our ability to develop ourselves, and also of our suppliers to grow themselves by developing, championing, testing, and implementing sustainable solutions for companies like ours. So we put particular focus on testing and applying new technologies for materials, equipment, packaging, and there we depend a lot on the innovation and the forward looking attitudes of our suppliers. We have introduced in our manufacturing facilities electric forklifts. This was a result of a proposal by one of our suppliers having to do with our commitments to procure 100% of our electricity energy from renewable sources. And therefore, since our plants are procuring 100% of their, covering their 100% of their electricity needs on renewable sources, the electric forklifts allow us to further to minimize our CO2 emissions in a sustainable way. A second example has to do with new technologies in manufacturing and, as a matter of fact, in logistics. We tested first among FMCGs, all FMCGs in Europe, and the first country in our in Coca-Cola Hellenic, among 28 countries of our group, we were able to test and further develop a solution which is based on augmented reality to help us do more accurate and more productive picking up our warehouse facilities. This facilitated a lot the work of our warehouse workforce and improved significantly the accuracy of orders to our customers. So end to end, it was a solution that helped every chain, every piece of the chain in production and supply. Next, please. But we ourselves are suppliers to our customers, and we aim to share with them, as well as with our own suppliers, our vision for a more sustainable future. With our customers, therefore, I have included an example from Cyprus. Here, we would like to engage them behind our vision for world without waste. Therefore, we have developed with more than 200 customers in coastal areas of Cyprus, a network aiming to minimize production of waste and also commit to full recycling. And we have significant results so far, and we take much pride in this coastal network in Cyprus, which we would like to see also developed in Greece in a bigger scale. And this is from my side, and I welcome your questions and your comments for the roundtable.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patrouba, for all the interesting actions that you shared with us. I would like to point out two things. First of all, because we're about 15 minutes late, if we can please stay strictly on the 5 minutes presentation, please, so that we are on time. And I would like to, just a minute, apologize to Mr. Konstantinidis, because Dr. Bright is with us, and I would like to give her the floor in order to talk to us about the EU study and the supply chain. Dr. Bright, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly.
Perfect. And my apologies for the problem with the mic earlier. So I just wanted to share with you some of the key findings of the study that co-authors for the European Commission on due diligence requirements through the supply chains. I think we can move to the next slide, please. So this is the study that led to the announcement that Elisa mentioned earlier of the European Commissioner Reinders to introduce a legislative initiative in 2021. In this study, we explored 4 components in particular. The first one was the market practices. So we had a survey that received 631 responses, both from companies themselves and to all relevant stakeholders. We undertook 50 interviews and 10 company case studies. The second component of the study was a regulatory review, where we looked at the current legislative landscape, and in particular included 12 country reports. Then we had a problem analysis and the regulatory options at the EU level, and an assessment of the costs and benefits of the different options. And we can move to the next slide, please. So some of the key findings of the study really lie in the fact that it highlighted the limitation of the voluntary approaches and the soft law regulation that have been predominant until now. In particular, we found that just over 1/3 of business respondents indicated that they undertake human rights and environmental due diligence that takes into account all sorts of human rights and environmental impacts. And amongst the companies that were undertaking due diligence, the majority of them indicate that they're undertaking it only in relation to their first-tier suppliers. Next slide, please. We see here that in terms of the current incentives for companies to undertake due diligence, the main ones are the pressure from suppliers, having pressure from investors, of having higher standards, the pressure from consumer as well, and also the reputational risks for the companies. Next slide, please. Looking at the regulatory review, what we found is that there is a wide spectrum at the moment of regulations that either seek to encourage or require companies to undertake human rights and environmental due diligence in Europe. There are three categories in particular at the moment. We have reporting regulations such as the UK Modern Slavery Act, which requires large companies to publish an annual statement of the steps that they are undertaking to ensure that slavery and human rights and human trafficking is not taking place in their operation and in their supply chains. Then we find regulations that impose obligations that go beyond reporting to require substantive due diligence that are specific to certain issue. An example of that is the Dutch Child Labour Due Diligence Act of 2019, which requires all companies, including SMEs, that sell goods or provide services to Dutch markets to exercise due diligence in relation to the risk of child labour being used in their supply chains. And then we have the regulation that provides the overarching framework on mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence, such as French legislation, the French law on the devoir de vigilance, the duty of vigilance, which was adopted in 2017 and was the first legislation in the world to require companies to undertake human rights and environmental due diligence, both in their operations and throughout their supply chains. There are also many legislative initiatives that are being developed or discussed in various countries in Europe. In Switzerland, the Swiss Responsible Business Initiative was launched in 2016, again seeking to impose an overarching duty on companies to undertake human rights and environmental due diligence, which would include both large companies but also small and medium enterprises operating in high-risk sectors. And we're now expecting the upcoming popular vote at the end of November. There's also the Norwegian Draft Act, which contains differentiated duties for small and medium enterprises and for larger enterprises, with a duty for companies to know about their salient risks that would apply to all enterprises, and the duty to undertake substantive due diligence that would apply to larger enterprises only. And then more recently, there is a German draft key points of a draft German law that were released, and again would require mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence, but only to larger companies of over 500 employees. Next slide, please. So looking at that regulatory framework, regulatory landscape, and the regulatory options at the EU level, we found in our study that the majority of stakeholders supported the introduction of a general requirement at the EU level that would apply to all companies and that would be cross-sectoral. If this was very much seen as the regulatory option, which would yield the greatest positive social, environmental, and human rights impact, and it was supported as well by a majority of companies, with 7% of them anticipating that it would also be beneficial for companies in terms of leveling the playing field, providing legal certainty, and having a single harmonized standard at the EU level. Next slide, please. So this is just that illustration of what I was saying. And I will stop here my presentation because I think I've run out of time. Thank you all very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure for me to be here today.
We thank you very much, Dr. Bright. And we go back to business, back to Mr. Ioannis Konstantinidis. He's the purchasing CSR manager of Lidl Hellas. And I'm asking Mr. Konstantinidis to share with us his experience on how his company has implemented actions to help SMEs adjust their operations according to the EU business model and build their performance to become concrete members of the value chain. Please, Mr. Konstantinidis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really thankful about all this beautiful information and so informative slides I had before from all the presenters. CSR of companies has an important impact on societies. On behalf of Lidl Hellas, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm called Ioannis Konstantinidis, former buyer and now a purchasing CSR manager. I'm delighted to be here today and tell you about supply chain. We have a different model, and Lidl in general, Lidl in Europe, in USA, the model we work is based on supply chain, is based on procedure with closed loops and with circular economy. We care about locality, regionality, specific timeline, and specific goals. Lidl stop selling single-use plastic very early. We care about tea, coffee, paper. But let's start with some details. Let's start from the supply chain and how we can transform it in a value chain. Can I have the next slide, please? As Lidl, we care about safety and we care about the quality. Specific and constant temperature for each product from the warehouse until the moment you buy it is only secured by very seldom checks. We make sure that the temperature remains constant. This is a preoccupation of HASP specification system, but we care even more. We make controls several times per day. The temperature in our freezers is controlled by technological means and remains always constant. In order not to waste energy, we use special chambers. Imagine all the products comes to the central warehouses and then we lead them to the stores. We work in a different way, but in a way like that, we have only one track going from the warehouse to the stores. We don't make our suppliers transfer our products door by door in every store around the country. This is a central way of working, and this is a way that secure for us that all the products are fresh. High-tech materials, special packs, cold boxes, and special chambers secures this for us. Apart from that, we go a step ahead. In our warehouses, we have special booths for chocolates. We don't transfer them like a normal product, but we secure that the maximum temperature is 20 degrees. Also fruit and vegetables. In order to avoid food waste, we always control the room temperature inside the warehouse and inside the transfer means to be maximum 4 degrees. It's like being always in the fridge. This secures that when you buy something from the Lidl stores, maintains its freshness for longer. And when we have something in stores, we can secure that even the next day it's fresh. Can I have the next slide, please? Quality is not only safety, it's also locally. Products and regionality. We care about the strategic cooperation with local producers, and the total turnover of Lidl Hellas is mostly basically in Greek products and Greek producers. Can I have the next slide, please? 100% of our fresh meat comes from Greek suppliers. In the dairy sector, we work together with the big firms, but with extra 28 domestic suppliers who supply milk from more than 2,500 small milk producers. Locality means more easily to control production. Locality means that we care about society. Vegetables and fruits is another very vivid and important example that we care about locality. More than 100 Greek suppliers, of which 17 are cooperatives. All the products, all the fresh products, meat, fish, fruits, vegetables, comes from Greek suppliers. And in the end of the day, over 20% of our turnover comes from Greek suppliers. Today, more than 60% of the turnover, talking about sales, comes in general from Greek products, not only the fresh one that I talked about them before. It's not only Greece. When we talk about a multinational company, the responsibility of us is to transfer our taste, to transfer our products, to secure our freshness all around the world. Our presence in Europe, in Asia, and in USA supports local communities, supports Greek suppliers. More than 55 suppliers now export directly through Lidl Hellas, a total of 150 products. Why? Because the Greek products are high in demand all around Europe. We can imagine that 85,000 tons of products in the category of fruits and vegetables annually travels from Greece to abroad in all around Europe. This is, to visualize it, around 4,000 trucks. Imagine 4,000 full trucks with 32 pallets to go around Europe, and all these are Greek-grown products. We're very proud of that, and we invest more and more in regional products, offering our customers even more scale products, because small and medium enterprises matters around Europe. How you can do that? We made regional weeks where in the Lidl Hellas and Lidl Cyprus stores you can find regional products, which are very small brands and very small products, small talking on a scale of production, but very important and big in quality and taste. So organizing some small regional weeks, you promote local flavors, you promote and exchange flavors all around country. In these weeks, we sold around 30 products from Greek, Macedonia, and Thessalia, 26 products from Epirus and Thrace, etc. So we divide Greek's regions in municipalities or let's say regions, and we exchange small products all around the stores. It's a good opportunity for a customer from Athens, the capital city, to taste something from the islands, and for somebody from islands to be able to take a small flavor from the mainland. These products don't stay only inside Greece. The most successful one travels abroad. Next slide, please. Last but not least, it's not only locality, it's not only about technology, about the way you work, about the way you organize your business. It's a holistic and real new way of mentality and set of mind in the way you work. Cradle to Cradle is not only a logo, it's a way of thinking. It's a way of producing, a way of doing business without effectiveness in a negative way to the environment and to the society. A closed cycle economy and closed loops in economy without negative effects, it's something important. We don't have a second Earth to travel to. We don't have a second choice and second chance anymore. Let's see some details about cradle to cradle. Next slide, please. For us, cradle to cradle is a holistic way of thinking. We think in an efficient way. We think in a way that we implement what we think, but only in a way that we don't harm. But for us, cradle to cradle is a special logo. It's a certified logo on our textiles and clothes. Together with some important stakeholders, we designed and implemented this biodegradable printing paste for our textiles. The fiber of the clothes are not harmful from the fauna, not harmful from humanity as well, because we all live in the same planet. Cradle to Cradle aims to drive intelligent product design. We select chemicals. We care about ingredients. We care about what happens to our clothes afterwards, the material health and the material after-sale future, the carbon management, renewable energy. All this is an act of social fairness. When we buy something, we don't have to harm somebody else. Manufacturing, having in mind the future. This is cradle to cradle. We, as Little Hellas and Little Cyprus, we care about the impact on society, and we care about the responsibility we have. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Konstantinidis. I'm sorry we had to interrupt and send you messages to be a little bit faster because we have run out of time. And last but not least, I would like Mr. Konstantinos Karvounakis. He's the Senior Product Manager of Eurocert. And I would like him to introduce to us the practical tool called Ethos, which is a Greek word meaning credibility and morality. The tool is designed by CSR Hellas and Eurocert to support SMEs on mapping their material issues and measuring their progress regarding their business responsibility. Please, Mr. Karvounakis, the floor is yours for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from me as well. My name is Kostas Karvounakis from Eurocert, and I will be talking to you regarding the certification scheme Ethos, an integrated management system for corporate social responsibility. Next slide, please. As Alexandra just mentioned, Ethos, from the Greek word ethos, is the first private Greek standard for corporate social responsibility, and it was developed with a partnership of CSR Hellas and Eurocert. Eurocert, for those of you that do not know us, is the biggest Greek certification body with activity in more than 30 countries abroad, and we are considered a leader in the social audit and sustainability audit sector. Regarding Ethos, we have already developed the standard itself, a checklist, and an implementation guidance. And we have already identified the need and are in progress of developing an informative and implementation manual specifically for the SMEs. Next slide, please. For those of you familiar with the management standards, we have taken a lot of important and reliable documents and standards into account, in particular, quality, environment, health and safety, and anti-bribery management systems, social management systems like SA8000, SMETA 6.1, as well as ISO 26000. Of course, I need to mention that all these requirements of Ethos support the UN SDGs. Next slide, please. Ethos is designed and developed in order to encompass and cover all aspects of an organization, including its internal as well as external environment. Therefore, its basic principles are, as you can see, governance, environment, health and safety, anti-bribery and anti-corruption, business ethics, human and worker rights, customer service quality, but also, and very, very important, supply chain management, as mentioned before by other presenters, and local community engagement and stakeholder consultation. Next slide, please. The certification process, for those of you that are familiar with audits and management systems, is more or less common. I just want to focus on the audit part. The audit is conducted on site, which differentiates Ethos from other audit platform audits that are conducted via platform by socially approved auditors. The criteria in the checklist comprises of mandatory and optional questions. Mandatory are related to legal compliance and therefore are no-go for Ethos certification, while optional questions build up the score from which the final audit report is completed. Next slide, please. The successful completion of the audit leads to the award of Ethos Mark, and we have 3 different levels. The first level is 60% as a minimum, which leads to Ethos Award. The second is the Ethos Gold of 75%, and the Ethos Platinum is the highest rank for more than 90%. Just to clarify here, as I said before, apart from the optional questions, there are some no-go questions which are related to the legal compliance. Next slide, please. We believe that Ethos is ideal for small and medium organizations. Why? Because it has a user-friendly checklist with guidance for implementation. Therefore, these companies can easily understand what is required and try to comply with. Furthermore, as we discussed before, there are some no-go questions which are related to legal compliance. Therefore, legal compliance is assured. Apart from that, it could serve as a training for areas requiring improvement, which is very, very important for these companies in order to understand how to move forward and achieve continual improvement. And last but not least, it can be used as a practical evaluation tool, not only for large organizations to map their supply chain, but also by banks or other institutions for due diligence and funding purposes. Next slide, please. It is also appropriate for large organizations. It can be easily integrated with other existing management systems that these companies usually are certified with. Furthermore, it gives a holistic audit approach and can serve as an input for sustainability reporting. We have already identified the usefulness for mapping and monitoring the supply chain of these companies. And what is important to say is that it can serve as saving resources for these companies, as the audit is external, which saves also resources and gives a third-party assurance to the whole process. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Just a few words with the implementation and the experience we have so far with Ethos. We launched Ethos about 1.5 years ago, starting from the hotel sector, which is very, very important for our Greek economy. Ethos certification has been approved by the Hellenic Chamber of Hotels for granting 100 points for a hotel star rating system, which was very important for us. Through this 1.5 years, we have, out of the total number of hotels that participated, more than 90% have managed to comply with their criteria and get certified, with an average score of 68%. You can see in the relevant graph that the large majority has achieved the Ethos certification, while about 1/3 has reached the Ethos Gold. What is important and encouraging is that out of the hotels that participated also for the first surveillance audit in the second year, we have noted a significant improvement in the score of 6%, reaching to 74% in total. Next slide, please. And finally, through this last year, we have launched and implemented Ethos into the manufacturing sector, and in particular in Eladikamas Association. Eladikamas is a certification scheme to promote focused on promoting Greek ownership and Greek production. Ethos checklist has been included and approved by Eladikamas as a requirement for approval and compliance in order to promote the social profile of these companies. These companies are mainly of the food sector, and the large majority, more than 80%, are SMEs. Through the first year of implementation, more than 80% have managed to successfully complete the audit, and we are encouraged and hoping that through the next year we will see greater improvement. Thank you very much for your attention, and I think we can move on, Alexandra, to the Q&A session.
Well, unfortunately, we have CSR Europe informed us that we have to close so we don't have time, unfortunately, for questions. However, we can, anyone who wants to pose the questions, they can send us an email, and we will be back to you, because anyway, we are going to send the presentation and the PowerPoints, and the meetings recording will be available by CSR Europe. So if you could please send us your questions through email, we will be very happy to answer. I believe that it was we had a very fruitful and constructive meeting. We were informed about the new business environment. We understood the important role of bigger enterprises that can play in improving the sustainability in the supply chain. We learned about the best practices and tools in the SMEs, and we were informed for the present status of SMEs in Greece, the updates for the European Commission affecting SMEs, and of course Ethos, which is a very important tool for SMEs. We are very proud for introducing this tool. And we all have our mutual goal to make the supply chain more sustainable. I would like to thank very much on behalf of CSR Hellas, our sponsors, our speakers, our administrators, and of course all our participants. Stay safe, and we will be in contact with you, CSR Hellas and CSR Europe, for more details. Thank you very much for attending.